Sometimes, we're
Sorry, Julianne, I just realized we weren't recording, so I hit record.
that's okay. That's
I
okay.
knew I was going to interrupt you, but I just did it.
All good, all good. So yeah, so there'll be at least one for the most part Zodiac outing. Often there'll be two. Sometimes there'll just be a Zodiac cruise up a gorgeous fjord, up to a waterfall. Sometimes you'll head to shore and there'll be multiple different levels of hikes. And the expedition leader will go over this in the evenings. There'll be a debriefing every night, and they'll be talking about what you're going to do the next day. So there's different levels of hikes. You would just sign up for it the night before. You can beachcomb or you can choose to go on the longer couple-hour hike. There's always going to be plenty to see. So we're going to just work our way down through the Torngat National Park. And then we go to Hebron, which is a very, very moving historical site. I won't say too much more about that, but it's a very moving location, and you'll be completely debriefed on the history once before you get there. And then once you're there, there's all sorts of historians and just the expedition team will walk you through what's gone on there. And then we'll hop down to Nain, which is actually, who is the expedition leader on your trip? Is it Jason? Anyways, not
Sure. Do
too,
you know Franny?
Sorry, I was
I'm
on mute there. I think it will be Jason.
which will be really, really neat because Jason is actually he's part of the Swan family now, married to Cedar, who's one of the owners of Adventure Canada, but he was the expedition leader when I went, and he actually grew up in Nain. He's an Inuit that grew up there. So his father was actually on board with us, and a few of his friends were expedition team members as well. And they grew up in Nain, and it was really beautiful. We took our Zodiac to the shore, and his mom came to the shore to greet us all, and they had a couple of Inuit women playing trumpets for us, and the community just was just so happy to see us. It was a really beautiful day spent in Nain. And then yes, from there down to Newfoundland, you're basically just on exploration mode, expedition mode. You're just going to be going kind of where the captain and the expedition leader deem is sort of the best places to go. There's all sorts to see. And then you'll end up coming down to L'Anse aux Meadows, which is, again, a very cool historical site. It's the first, well, the only Norse landing in North America. It was the first and the only, I believe. But yeah, it's a very interesting interpretive site. So you'll spend the afternoon there, and then we'll head over to a park on the eastern side of Newfoundland. And then on our last morning, we will come around and into the bay in St. John's. So yeah, it's a really, really fabulous trip. And I was just going to mention, so Klein was talking about how we are not the only women on, or the only people on board. We're a group within a group. But so we do things like when we go on our Zodiac outings, we try to go together in the Zodiacs. You don't have to hike together, but there's always going to be a wild woman probably in your group for hiking. We eat our dinners together. We have an area in the Nautilus Lounge that we kind of designate for our own area. So every time you come into the lounge, you kind of know where to go. So after a few days, you really, really get, not even a few days, actually, sometimes after a few hours, you really start to feel like this cohesive group, and it just grows as the trip goes on. But I mean, Klein, it's going to be great for Rocky to experience this, but Klein has been on a host on many of these trips now, and she's just a master at making sure that our women feel like a part of a group, and we are, and we just have an absolute blast to the point where a lot of the other women on the trip that aren't with the wild women start coming up to you halfway through the trip, and they're like, who are you? Why are you, I wish I was with you women. So we do get to turn into a bit of, I think, the envy of the other women on the boat. So yeah, we just have a blast. So I'm really excited for you. And I wish I was joining you.
Thanks, Julianne. I'll talk a little bit about arrival and embarkation. Oh, and I also wanted to preface this. I think I'll do this slide first before that one. Everyone should have gotten an email from Adventure Canada with their passenger portal information. The deadline for that has already passed. It was on August 28th. So if you are tardy like I am sometimes, then you'll want to finalize all that information. And if you haven't, Adventure Canada will probably in the next few days be reaching out to you to remind you about that as well. So try and do that by the end of the week. Another thing that's happening, we're going to be sending out a pre-trip bulletin. So a bulletin that's going to go out by around the end of the week, and if not by the end of the week, early next week. So that should be in your inbox quite soon. That will just have a little more thorough information about pre-trip details, maybe some more flight info. You'll have your host bios in there. You'll have access to any last minute additions in the pre-trip package. So there should be some emergency contacts in there, as well as info about the theme party on board. So there's going to be a theme party this year, and the theme is sea creatures. So if you want to dress up and represent wild women in that way, you can. And that will be sent out by the end of the week, if not early next week. A little of some finer details on arrival and embarkation. So everyone should be arriving in Toronto on September 27th. That is a Friday. And on September 27th, Klein and Rocky will greet you at the Sheridan welcome desk. There's going to be, they'll be welcoming you. Adventure Canada puts up some coffee and light food that you can snack on. You'll receive your expedition parka and your Wild Woman toque, baggage tags, and that's from between 4 to 6. So you can sign in with Klein and Rocky between 4 to 6 at the Sheridan Gateway Hotel. And after that, at 6 o'clock, there's going to be a mandatory briefing. So you can attend that for sure. And then after that, everyone will be invited to have dinner in the Sheridan restaurant, should they choose so. And then the next morning, you're going to be on your charter flight from Toronto to Kangerlussuaq. Likely you'll get more details about that in the email that's going to go out soon. And the timing might not be confirmed until the 27th. So at the mandatory welcome briefing, your flight will be confirmed. Yeah, so that's that. And disembarkation. We don't want to talk too much about disembarkation because you have your whole trip to look forward to. But there are a few details that we want you to know. One is that try not to worry about disembarkation. There will be, if you can let go of everything disembarkation, just enjoy the trip. That is my true advice to you. There will be a disembarkation briefing towards the end of the voyage to get everything you need, all the information you need about that process in your mind. So that's going to happen. And Klein and Rocky will be there to answer any questions for you. And you're going to disembark on October 12th in St. John's, Newfoundland. And there's complimentary transfers to the hotel or airport. We advise booking onward travel the next day on October 13th for peace of mind, just in case anything happens with disembarkation. Yeah. So that's that one. We already did this slide. And I'll hand this over to Rocky, I believe.
All right, the fun part. So what to pack? One of the main things when traveling to the Arctic that's going to be an essential item is going to be binoculars, because everything, a lot of things you'll find are going to be at a distance. And having binoculars allows you to stay connected to what's happening and being able to see things, because otherwise, if you don't have binoculars, there are opportunities to be able to borrow some, but then you are waiting to use somebody else's binoculars. So that's something that I've found has been extremely handy to bring. from the gear perspective of what to pack, so getting a waterproof backpack, especially if you have any kind of photography gear or phones or anything that you want to carry that you need to protect it, because we're taking Zodiacs, you know, when we're going from ship to the going ashore, or we're in Zodiacs doing cruising, there could be water that could come into the Zodiac. So just to keep yourself, your everything protected, keeping a waterproof backpack is always going to be handy. You can put in extra mitts or, you know, extra in addition to your photography gear. There's additional things and layers that you can keep in your backpack. So the other thing to remember with these trips is layers is going to be the key ingredient to be safe and secure. So waterproof gloves. So there's sometimes you'll see that there's things that will say water resistant. You want to make sure that you have waterproof gloves, waterproof pants. The waterproof pants, they need to fit over the boots. So just whenever you're purchasing your waterproof pants, make sure that the legs, it'll fit over the boots for you, versus that it being tucked in. And then having the base layer, so moisture wicking material is going to be one of the best things to keep. Try to avoid wearing any material like cotton, where you basically want to have moisture wicking material that doesn't allow for any sweat or anything to stay onto your body that could end up getting, you know, that's where people end up getting sick. So moisture wicking material, I typically go to Uniqlo to buy some stuff, but there's lots of other good brands like Icebreakers, other merino wool. There's a few brands that we can, if you want, we can send out a list, or if you want to ask, we can just email me and I can send something over to you. But there's a number of different things. So your base layers, then you want to have mid layers, and then you want to have the top layers. Because most people are from have lots of fleece or sweaters, those are generally going to keep you nice and warm. That can act as a mid layer. So I typically have my base layers. I'll put in another a fleece lined top, and then sometimes I'm doubling up my base layers as well. So there's a few different ways to keep yourself warm. But having the layers on is definitely going to be key. So one of the things that's going to be provided, there's going to be an expedition jacket that's provided by Adventure Canada. Now, this is a shell. It's windproof and waterproof. It won't have any additional lining inside. So just make sure that you have, again, the proper clothing for that. And then there's going to be rain boots. So the rain boots are sufficient for some people who do want to take them out on hikes. It does work. Some people will prefer to bring their own hiking shoes or the hiking boots, as long as they're closed-toed. And again, make sure that they are waterproof as well. It'll be, there can be some areas that are muddy. I think, Julianne, you might be able to speak on this a little bit more in terms of the terrain. If having waterproof hiking boots would be required, but having that something with a really good grip is going to be key. Some people also prefer bringing their own poles, just for additional assistance. So if that's something that you need and that's something that you have, you can bring those along with you. If there's anything that I've missed, I'm going to ask the ladies just to jump in, or just put in your questions and we can answer them at the end.
I think you did a good job, Rocky. I think that you know, those mid layers, base layers, and making sure there's enough, you know, options, I think is the key there, and the binoculars, of course.
Yeah, and polarized sunglasses, very important. Sometimes it might not be as much of a sunny day, but because of some of the areas that we're going to, definitely the polarized sunglasses is going to be a good protectant for your eyes.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to mention is that the jacket, it's actually not waterproof, it's water resistant. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because you do want to make sure, if it is a rainy day, which is pretty unlikely, or there's a good chance of getting splashed in the Zodiac if it's a wet day or a bumpy ride, you do want to make sure you have a warm layer underneath or something also in a bag tucked inside your backpack, because yeah, if you get splashed hard, it will go through the jacket if it's enough water. So it's good to have a warmer layer if you're somebody that runs cold, and inside a bag, plastic bag in your bag, so that when you get to shore, you can take anything that it might have gotten wet, you can take it off and put on a dry layer.
Rocky, are you taking questions now or at the end?
You can go ahead and ask.
Okay. Could you explain again what you meant about the pants and like tucking into the boots versus over the boots? What was the reasoning, or can you elaborate on
So sometimes we have wet landings. So when you are getting off the Zodiac and you'll put when you get off the Zodiac, you might have water that's going up towards it could be sometimes your ankle or a little above, going a little below your knee. So in which case, when you have your waterproof pants outside of the boots, it prevents any water going into the boots or for you getting wet. So in case it trickles down towards your socks or anything else, then it can be very uncomfortable and it can cause you to get sick. So it's an extra layer of protection to keep the waterproof pants outside, and it's just over the boots, versus a lot of times you might see some people tucking their pants inside, but then the water can go in. So it's just an extra layer of protection.
Thank you.
No worries.
Alrighty. This slide is meant to cue us to talk about seasickness. Like, I can't remember, Klein, were you going to talk about this?
Well, I can talk about it, sure. Because I'm someone who does suffer from seasickness, so I can talk from my own experience. And for the most part, if the ship is fairly flat, then it's not going to be a problem. But as Julianne mentioned earlier, when we're crossing the Davis Strait, and if you remember from the map, it's that wide stretch of water between Greenland and Canada, we could get a little bit more waves in there just because it is so open. And so in which case I would recommend bringing along whatever you normally would use for motion sickness. So in Canada, it's Gravol, I think, is the common one. And in the States, I believe it's Dramamine. And they're different drugs, but they both work similarly. And yeah, and take it before you get sick is the biggest thing. So if you're starting to feel it, don't think I can tough through this, because usually you just get sicker, and then it's really hard to get on top of the symptoms once you're feeling sick. So if I know it's going to be a little rough, I take a little bit of medication, sort of preventatively, and then I'm usually good. I haven't had any problems, but you have to get on top of it. And we've had some women who are like, no, I'll be fine. And they lose a day of their trip because they're just in bed feeling awful, trying to tough it out. So definitely recommend doing that. And for the most part, I think that it will be probably quite smooth, but just in case, have it handy. And if you do need some, the doctor will give out like a little bit, but they're not going to give out enough for everybody on the whole ship if it gets a little wavy. So come prepared.
Yeah. And that there is that emergency doctor should you need anything else as well.
And sorry, I would say take the medication with dinner. Because I've done it where I've taken it afterwards, and then you're pretty drowsy for most of the day. Drink lots of water. I also bring ginger candy for it just helps settle things.
Perfect.
Amazing. And then last but not least, Klein, do you want to talk about the hosts?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are 4 of our lovely hosts. Some of you may recognize them: Jenny, Marissa, Dimpna, and our lovely Franny on the right. And these are not going to be your hosts. Your hosts are Rocky and myself. And we we play a sort of in-between role on the boat. So the Adventure Canada staff are the expedition team, and they're going to be leading all the expeditions. They're going to be giving you the briefings, talking about the end of the day, sort of the debrief at the end of the day. But what we'll be doing, Rocky and I, is we'll be helping you get organized when you come to the Sheridan, and get you all checked in. And then on board, we're going to be acting as a bit of a go-between between us and Adventure Canada. If you need something, you can come to us. If something, maybe there's an issue, we're here for you, like no matter what. And we'll go to bat for you if there's something that you need. And then we're also helping to, I call it herding cats sometimes. So we get down to the mudroom and we're all going out on zodiacs, and we really like to try and get all the women together on zodiacs. So Rocky or I will be at the front, sort of leading the head of the group, and then one of us will be at the tail, kind of pushing you along so that we can kind of stay together as much as possible when we're out on excursions. We'll try to split up when there's options for different hikes. Rocky and I will choose different hikes so that there will be one of us on at least a couple of the excursions. It's not going to be possible for us to be on all of the different excursions, but we try to kind of choose the more popular ones where you're going to be. We also organize a place in the dining room where we're always going to meet for our meals. And there will be little signs on the table that they're reserved for us. And so we'll be able to eat together as a group. And then any questions that you have as the trip goes on, we can definitely help you. And if we don't know the answer, we can try and find the answer for you as we go along on the trip as well. And let me think, what else do we do? I feel like we're always really busy on the ship. So we work really closely with Adventure Canada. We have a point person we talk to. We're going to be setting up at least one reception that's just for us, with some drinks and maybe some finger foods, that kind of thing. And just oh yeah, the other really important thing we're going to be doing is we're going to have our camera in your faces probably. So we're also taking pictures for social media and posting about the trip and getting those who aren't on the trip excited about potentially joining us in the future. So we're posting on the Facebook group, and then we're also in touch with our office. So if we need anything from the back end, we can always kind of have that support from the office with us as well. So we're wearing lots of different hats. We try to have a little whiteboard somewhere up on the ship that is in a location where you're going to pass it regularly, and we'll write little notes on there. It's actually, when we get on board, it can be kind of tough to communicate with one another. So meal times is a good time because we're all together. So if we have something to tell you, we'll go around to the tables and share that with you. But we also have this whiteboard, and we'll point that out to you when we're on board. The location of where it is changes sometimes. And then we'll be able to put little notes. We're having a reception today at 7 o'clock in case you missed the memo at lunch. So I play guitar, I sing, so I organize sing-alongs if people are interested. We've been in the talent show. I've played guitar for people who want to sing. So, whatever comes up, we can do our very best to facilitate it and help you to have the most spectacular, amazing journey of your lifetime. And as we go along, if there are things that we can do to help facilitate that, please tell us, come to us, and we will do everything we can to make that happen. And that's kind of what we do on board.
Thanks, Klein. So we'll open it up to questions now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and it will bring us back to all of our lovely faces. Yeah, but if you want to write some questions in the chat box, how many wild women on this trip? That's a good question. I believe that it's 17. I'm just going to double check that number though right now.
Yeah, I just had a look actually, and it's showing 17.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. I think almost everybody's actually on this call. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
There's 6, is it 16 here? But you and Julianne won't be on the trip.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's
it's over.
14 of our 17 right here.
How many people will be on the ship?
There's about 200 passengers, give or take, just depending on how full the ship is, but that's what it can comfortably accommodate. And then there's the staff and the crew, which are also a pretty good number. And I can't remember the staff's, the expedition team is what, maybe 30,
About
40
30,
people?
maybe 35, I would say.
And then the crew is over 100. There's lots of crew.
Yeah.
Taking care of us. It's like one for every two people.
I was trying to find it on either yours or Adventure Canada's website. What sort of length of hikes in the Torngat is possible? I'm thinking of the longish ones.
Julianne, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think it really is going to depend on which fjord out of the thousands that you go up that day. I know that they probably have some that they frequent more than others, but it doesn't mean that you'll make it into those ones. So I think, and it all depends on how the land lends itself to the bear guards. So what the bear guards are all about, obviously there's polar bears in this area. So before we even go to shore, they'll send a Zodiac with the bear guards, and they will go out and they will set a huge perimeter. And so depending on the lay of the land, it might dictate how long the hikes are. Like I think the longest hike for our group when we went, I think it was about 3 hours return. And the reason they're not all day hikes is because you don't bring any food to shore at all, like nothing. You can't bring anything in your pack or your pockets, no smells of any kind, just to not disturb the wildlife at all. So usually your outings are going to be a good couple hours in the morning. We'll always come back to the ship for lunch. And then we may head out again for another shore landing or a Zodiac tour or something else in the afternoon, depending on if we're going to be moving. We might just set sail and start heading to the next destination. But usually probably max 2-3 hours return. So there's usually a beach combing option. So if you just want to, if you don't feel like hiking, there's so much to see just along the shore. You're still going to see the tundra. You're going to see all sorts of interesting little things. And then there's going to be an easy hike, a moderate hike, and a harder hike, depending on the lay of the land. So yeah, so there's a good variety. And then you don't have to, there's no set times for when you can go back to the ship. So if you're beach combing and after an hour you've had enough, you can go over and hop in one of the empty Zodiacs. And once it's full, which happens quite quickly, they'll take you back to the ship. So they'll tell you the absolute last time, the last sort of Zodiac timing that's going back to the ship. So if you're on the longer hike, you can go in that. Even if you're beach combing and you want to stay the entire time, you can do that. So the boats come and go. You're never left alone. You're always going to be with a guide, or somebody's going to be watching where you are. So it's really safe in that sense. But yeah, there's some good elevation gain too, because it's sort of right from shore. A lot of the peaks just go straight up. So if you do want to get a good workout and you join the moderate or the harder one, you'll get your heart pumping for sure.
Great. Thanks,
Great.
Julie.
And
Sorry.
there's a lot of questions coming through here, so I'll just throw some out. Are the provided boots insulated, and do they have a grip bottom?
No.
They have a bit of a grippy bottom. Some of them are more robust than others. I personally didn't even take hiking boots. Every time I've done one of these trips, I've just worn the rubber boots for my walks, and found them totally sufficient. If you are planning on doing that, make sure you get a pair of boots that has a good bottom. And if they don't, you can chat with them, and they do have some that have more of a grip. But they're definitely insulated. They're warm enough for sure. If you have a good couple pairs of socks, your feet will be warm.
What is the cost for Wi-Fi? Is it free?
It's not free by any stretch. And they've just changed how they sell it. So if you've been on the ship before, it's a little bit different now. It goes by gigabytes, and the smallest package I think I want to say 2 gigabytes, and it's around $50 US. So it's not cheap. And then there's another package that's, around $100. I think that's 5 gigs. Don't quote me on those exact numbers. But you want to make sure if you do get Wi-Fi that you turn it off when you're not using it. I made the mistake of plugging my phone in and it started uploading all my pictures to the iCloud and used up all my data instantly. So don't do what I did. Yeah, so it is available. It is relatively reliable, not super high speed, and it is quite expensive. So you want to limit what you're doing.
Yeah,
It's
and we
definitely more
recommend a
reliable
digital
than it used to be.
detox
Yeah, exactly.
to kind of disconnect. Of course, if you have to message some family members, we totally get that, but it's such a great opportunity to completely disconnect in this
Mhm.
part of the world.
Mhm.
What temperatures are we looking at for this time of year?
It can vary dramatically. So I would say you're well, let's just do the conversion. I always should have this. I need to memorize this conversion, but for the Canadians in the group, um, we had a couple of days, not to say it's going to be the same, but really beautiful fall days where it was maybe 15 degrees, 15, sometimes even up to 20. There were a few days we were in t-shirts. And that would be, what is that? 15 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit is roughly 59 degrees ish. So I would say you can probably you're not going to probably get sub-zero temperatures. But that being said, when you are crossing the Davis Strait or when you're out on the deck, the wind can really make it feel like it's sub-zero in Fahrenheit. Oh, I'm so bad. I've got to remember that.
32
Um,
is 0.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I would say just plan for, this is why the layering is important, or the layers, and at least having them with you. Because you can have days where you are getting snowed on lightly, and by the afternoon you could be having a barbecue on the deck, like we were a couple weeks ago in Greenland in t-shirts. And then the boat shifted slightly in its angle and we were freezing. So depending on how protected you are from the wind, how much the sun is beating down on you, it can vary wildly. So yeah, be prepared for, I'd say 0 to 20 for the Canadians, 32 to probably 60-ish Fahrenheit.
How many kayak trips will we be doing? How are we launched? Will we be among icebergs? I'd love that.
That all depends too. So how are there quite a few of you doing the kayaking program? I think there's a couple.
Anyway.
So I know that they tried to make a minimum, but being an expedition, these things are difficult. But I would say each time I've been on the boat, the kayakers have gone out at least 4 times, if not, I think up to 6, or I think probably 6 is the most I've seen them go out. So it really does depend on where you are that day, what the wind is like. Usually it's the wind, I think, that dictates it, because you can get those white caps or the forecast, even if it's nice in the morning and bound to change quite quickly. They take that into consideration too. But I think it's quite rare to not get out more than once or twice for sure. And glaciers are up to the icebergs. Yes, the day it's quite protected in the back end of the fjord where you go in Greenland. So I think quite often they do get to kayak there, and you will, because it's protected from the wind. Yeah, you get quite close up to the glaciers, and you're sort of paddling in large chunks of ice, not right beside these giant icebergs, but because icebergs can flip quite quickly too, so you keep your distance. But yeah, I mean, the photos that I've taken of the kayakers on this trip was just phenomenal. You will definitely be loving kayaking once you're out there. Yeah, depends on where you end up, really.
Kathy has to leave us. We're going to say bye, Kathy. Thanks for joining. And we have a question. Will mosquitoes be an issue?
I guess I can talk to that too. This is the colors of the tundra are one of the top reasons to go this time of year, but personally I think the other top reason to go is because this is probably one of the only times of year, other than when it's winter, the times of year when it's snow free, that it is relatively bug free as well. Because as we all know, this area can get absolutely overrun by mosquitoes, I think in June and July, even into August. But by the time you get to late September, um, pretty much all of the mosquitoes are long gone. We did have one landing where it was really quite boggy, not so much that your feet were getting soaked, but when you stepped on the bog, these little tiny flies, they weren't biting at all, but they were annoying and they were flying around you, but certainly nothing that would require a bug net or even bug spray. It was more just a little bit of this. And on my entire, how many days is this trip? That was the only time we saw anything that even resembled a bug. So I think it would be quite odd if you did end up in a fjord with bugs, but I won't say it won't happen, but I think it's relatively low chance.
Great. And Klein, do you remember how much massages cost?
I do because I had one on the
Amazing.
Scotland Faro trip. They're 140 Canadian dollars. Um, and I'm pretty sure that Lorne is the massage therapist on our trip, and he's fantastic. So I would recommend signing up as soon as you get a chance if you want a massage, because they do fill up quickly. I'm just going to keep, I'm looking at the questions and I'm just going to keep answering.
Okay.
I imagine the hot tub will be popular. How many people fit in it, and are reservations required? It's not as popular as you might think, but it's outside on the back deck, and I think about 6 people could comfortably fit in there. Um, yeah, and you don't have to reserve. So you just kind of check and see, is it free, or ask who's in there, can I join you, as long as it's not too full. It hasn't usually been a big issue. Yes, there is an exercise room. It's up by the massage room. It has several machines, some bikes, a row machine, and a selection of dumbbells. So it's not a huge gym. I tend to use it when I'm there, and I appreciate that it's there. There's also a sauna as well. If you like saunas, you can do that as well.
Is the
This question,
swimming, is the
sorry?
swimming pool heated?
The swimming pool is not heated per se, but they fill it with warm water. And they don't fill it very often because you can imagine if we're moving on the ship and all this water is sloshing around, it would be a big mess out on the back deck. But they do fill it with warm water, and it stays warm for quite a while. So if you want to go in, we were in there and it was quite pleasant, sort of not hot, but definitely warm. And it's usually not full long enough to get too cold. Did you want to add something to that, Julianne?
Yeah, I was just gonna about the saunas. I was just gonna mention Klein said that there's a sauna, and there's 2 saunas. There's one on either side. One of the saunas is just a free for all. If you get there and there's room, you go in. But you can actually book. So on that last trip, I was going up and maybe 8 o'clock at night. Whenever we sort of finished dinner or figured we'd be finished dinner, maybe about half an hour after that, I was just booking the sauna for about an hour for our Wild Women group. And that way, if you feel more comfortable just going with your group, then that gives us a time that we can all go together and you don't have to share it with the other passengers.
Oh, that's a great idea, Julianne.
Hmm.
I'm not much of a sauna person, but for those
I
who
never went in it.
yeah.
I didn't mind. But it
Yeah.
is lovely. I mean, I went in to look and it's quite nice. But I'm not much of a sauna person either. There's so much going on too that it's quite difficult to find time to do all this. Usually after dinner, there's going to be a talk or a movie or entertainment, or we'll just go to the Nautilus Lounge to hang out together and socialize. So it's really difficult to between, all the exciting talks and the everything that's going on, the dancing, the music. It's quite hard. There's not a lot of downtime. It's quite hard to find that time to sneak away to relax, but it's there if you want it.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Are there people to help us get in and out of the zodiacs? Yes,
Absolutely.
always people around to do that. Both in and out. I can answer this one. Danish kroners in Greenland, are there places to purchase local items? So yes, Greenland, in my opinion, is the shopping capital of the world. It's the best things I own are all from Greenland. And they do accept Danish kroner. I have not ever taken out Danish kroner to use there. Everywhere that I've purchased things have accepted Visa or American cash. And then when you're in Canada, I would recommend having some Canadian currency, just because in Canada, sometimes you will bump into someone who's selling something out on the street and want to buy it, and they'll need cash. But other than that, all the stores will accept Visa. Yeah. Just looking through.
I think
these-
there's one more asking about what glacier we'll visit, the name of the glacier that we'll visit.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
What's
I
the
wish
name
we
of the
could pronounce
glacier we
it.
visit? In Kangerlussuaq Fjord. I can't remember what it's called.
It was called, oh, it's got about 18 letters in this one word. Evix something, but I think we just called it Evix Fjord because none of us could pronounce it. It was either Evix or Eric's, but I could find it for you, I'm sure, but none of us would be able to pronounce it anyway. I'm quite sure they try to take you to the same spot each time. It's beautiful. Yeah, EVAK is about as far as I got.
And when you get on board, there'll be a chart, so you can find the Kangerlussuaq Fjord and then find the glacier, and there'll be staff on board to help you locate these places and what they're called. Klein, how long is the massage for 140 Canadian dollars?
It's an hour long.
An hour long, amazing.
Mhm.
And there's a few questions about kayaks. So do we wear dry suits for kayaking? Yes, everybody will be fitted for a dry suit if they are in the kayaking program, as well as a dry suit, or I mean a skirt. And how do they launch and land, you kayakers? So you'll get onto a Zodiac from the ship with your other fellow kayakers, and then they will Zodiac you to where your kayaks are located, and then you will take turns getting into the kayaks off of the Zodiac, and you'll have your kayaking sessions. You might kayak for anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, and then they will take you out of the kayaks either by one of two ways, back into the Zodiac, or a beach landing. So you'll bring your kayak onto shore, and then get out on land that way. And you'll also get booties if you're in the kayaking program.
Oh, we didn't actually cover there's a question, you may have covered this, I got disconnected briefly. What's the electricity setup on board? And that is actually a really good question because it's not what we have in North America. That's right, Nicole. In North America, we have the regular kind of plug that we're all used to. On board, it's the European 2-prong plug. And so you'll need an adapter. And it's also 220 volts. So if you're bringing a hairdryer or something like that, it's going to need to be converted to 220. So a travel hairdryer, actually they have hairdryers, don't bring a hairdryer. But any of your tools, like if you're bringing hair tools, know that they could get fried if you don't have the right conversion. Things like your phone, your computer, they all have built into the plug that you use. They have that surge control built in, so you can use those. I tend to just take a travel adapter that has all of the countries, all of the possibilities. You pop out the one you need. It's got some USB ports in it as well. And I find that super handy. I can charge my phone, my laptop, and whatever all at once. But you will need that plug adapter.
And I think you can get them for about $20 from
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
store
Yeah.
or
Amazon has
yeah,
them.
they're really quite cheap.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all of the questions, unless anybody has any last minute ones, but we wanted to say thank you for joining us here. And I'm very jealous of Klein and Rocky going on this trip. But we know that you're going to be in good hands, and we can't wait to see the photos and videos from your voyage in a few weeks' time. It's not long now.
I do want to say there is a private Facebook group just for our gang. So if you haven't seen it yet, look for the bulletin that we sent you, and there's a link in there, right, Franny, to the private
Yeah.
Facebook group. Yeah, there
Yeah.
should be. So
And
you
there'll be another link. There'll be another bulletin coming your way in a few days' time.
and that will also have the link.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we can continue the party over there. And obviously, if you have more questions, support@wildwomenexpeditions.com is the place to ask them as we get closer to the trip and things might pop up. We're on the Facebook group, Rocky and I, but we may not necessarily see your question immediately. So if we don't answer within a day or two, then definitely try the support email.
And Klein, you'll be setting up a WhatsApp group for everybody probably, right? Do you think?
Well, it's a bit challenging because we don't have, not everyone has access to Wi-Fi on board. So we can certainly set that up, but it's not a foolproof way to stay in touch with people on board. If you're not, if you're doing that detox, the tech detox that we suggest, then you won't get the messages.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking for just the day before, that sort of 24 hours when everybody's arriving, and if there's any late arrivals or any questions. And then it's just a nice way to keep in touch after as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely we'll set something up so we can stay in touch. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, I got a direct question from Kathleen. You haven't received the bulletin that I was talking about. It's being sent out in a few days.
I thought someone had just said that there was a first one that went out just recently.
Oh, it wasn't recent.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
It was sent out about 4 months ago.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. Okay.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten. Okay. Yeah.
There'll be another one very shortly.
Okay. Super.
With all the same information that was in that one, and then
Okay.
plus more. Yeah.
Okay. I do want to let you guys know that our flight is getting in at 5:30, and we're just heading right over to the Sheridan
Okay, yeah.
meeting, just to let you guys know that Trish and I will be, we should be arriving. I would say, 6 o'clock on the dot or a few minutes after, depending
Okay.
on.
Hopefully your flight everything is
We're putting that out there. It's a direct flight, so I'm hoping that, yeah. Yeah.
I like your cat,
We'll be
Nicole.
sending you good air vibes,
That's right.
flight vibes.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'm so looking forward to seeing all of you, re-meeting some of you and meeting some of you and just really exploring this incredible area together. I can't wait.
My one last thing I wanted to just say was they'll kind of put it out there. Jason will probably ask, show of hands, who wants to be woken up at 3 a.m. if there are northern lights? And of course, everybody was saying yes. So my advice to you is, no matter how tired you are, if you get the announcement into your room at 3 a.m. that there's northern lights, it's so worth going, and have your jacket ready and your warm layers right there beside you just to throw on and run upstairs, because it's for some people it's a once in a lifetime thing to see, and you're very likely to see them on this trip the time of year. So nope, no guarantees, but probably pretty likely that you will see them.
Awesome.
We'll be sending you Northern Lights vibes too from Wild Women headquarters. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. It's so great to see your faces, and
Thank you.
yeah, we'll be looking forward to Klein and Rocky's photos of the trip. We can't wait to see more. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you very
In
much.
Toronto.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting
See you
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye.